Well, fellas, update 13.4 brought a lot to the game. We got the full release of the Commonwealth cruisers. We have the continuation of the Wisconsin dockyard. We had the Azure event. Now we have the D-Day operation here. The Rodney, the Montcalm, and the Orion 44 have all been released. So it's been a pretty busy update. But there is one change I would like to dedicate a video to. One change that was sorely needed, long overdue. It has completely transformed this ship. The ship we're going to be talking about was considered by many to be one of the, if not the worst battleship in the game, tier for tier, and has taken this ship and made it what is now perhaps one of the best tier 8 tech line battleships. And that ship is the Monarch. Now, the Monarch. She's the tech line tier 8 mainline British battleship. But why was the Monarch so bad back in the day? Well, you can. I was about to say you can take a venture back on the forums, but you can't. Keep forgetting that the forums got deleted. But if you go back and look at some old Reddit posts or whatnot, you'll see that the Monarch was, well, not overly popular. Why? Well, you see, all the Monarch essentially was, it was the tier 7 tech line battleship, the King George V, but with a different gun setup. That was pretty much it. There were a couple of differences here and there. The armor was scaled up to tier 8 standards, so she had 32mm extremities and such instead of the, I believe, 26mm extremities that the King George V has. But other than that, they were pretty much the same ship. She had 9 15-inch guns instead of the 10 14-inch guns of the King George V, and her HE is a little bit different. It's actually oddly worse than the King George V, but that's kind of balanced out by having a pretty quick reload time on these 9 15-inch guns, and she still has the British BBHE, like it still has the crazy pens and the high fire chance and all that jazz. But the biggest thing is that her HP did not increase. She is stuck at 60,500 HP, which was the same number that the King George V had, with the British battleship armor scheme. You see, besides, oddly enough, British battleships, especially the King George V class, being some of the most heavily armored ships of World War II, which if you play this game, you'll be forgiven, I should say, for being mistaken that British battleships were incredibly lightly armored in comparison to like the Americans, the Germans, or the Japanese battleships of World War II. Because of course in this game, they're incredibly squishy. They can be pinned by just about every single light cruiser at their tier. Easily formable down by HE and by CVs and such because of how lightly armored they are, when again, in reality, the King George V class was, again, arguably one of the, well, there's some debate, depending upon how exactly armored the Yamato class was, which we don't know because, well, they're sunk, right? So you don't know the exacts of their armor. They're up there with the Yammies for their armor, right? Like, no joke, the King George V and her sisters toe-to-toe with the Yamato and the Musashi for their armor in real life. But again, in game, you wouldn't know that, right? So, yeah, having a tier 7 battleship's HP pool, 60,000, at tier 8 is not that great. But wait, Sealord, she's a British battleship. The British battleship, the Conqueror and the Lion, they get the super heal, right? Well, yeah, they do, but you see, until this patch, the Monarch didn't. She got a normal heal, not an improved heal, not something like the Warspite, not something like the American battleship heal. She got a normal heal, which, when you have the British battleship armor and tier 7 battleship HP, that's not a recipe for success. So you see, the Monarch, for the longest time, was just stuck at basically being a long-range HE farmer because that's all she was really good at. I mean, her damage output was pretty good because, again, you have 9 15-inch guns with a reload that's in, I believe, 26, 27 second range, which, yeah, that is good. But the problem was the second you got caught by anything, you just melted, right? You get farmed down by the enemy cruisers, the CVs would just bully you because, I mean, who cares about AA? And again, you're a squishy target, that they're HE rockets, they're bombs, and well, the torpedoes, of course, could basically have their way with. And God forbid you actually have to go toe-to-toe with another battleship, because they're going to chunk the ever-living crap out of you, but you can't recover from it. Meanwhile, of course, they have better armor than you, so your 15-inch guns, which, are about right for Tier 8, might do some damage to them, but again, you're going to get absolutely bullied in return. And if they're a secondary ship with secondaries that can pen 32 millimeters of armor, as a Tier 8 battleship has to deal a lot with, because you're naturally being up tier to Tier 9 and Tier 10 games all the time, you're just not having a good time. So for the longest time, because of this, Monarch was considered to be one of the worst Tier 8 battleships in the game, definitely among the worst of the worst tech line Tier 8 battleships. In fact, right now, sitting here recording this video, the only Tier 8 battleship I might have, ranked under the Monarch would be like the Italian Tier 8, the Vittorio, because the main battery guns aren't really that accurate, because again, SAP, and you only get 9 guns, and it's frustrating in that part, but it's at least a tanky battleship, and when you get in close, it can do battleship things, unlike the Monarch. Now, I always had a soft spot for the Monarch, because the guns were still pretty good. Again, with that fast reload time on those 9 15-inch guns at Tier 8, you could definitely put some pain downrange, but again, if you did get caught, you were pretty much dead, because, again, the armor and the HP situation. So that's what the Monarch was for the longest time, until this update. They finally gave the Monarch a super hill, a hill that's much more in line with the Lion and the Conqueror's hill. Now, it's not quite to the level of the Conqueror. You're not going to be reprinting your ship back from 2,000 HP up to 40,000 HP, but it will reprint a whole lot of it. Now, the background footage is a very, very good example of this. This is from Andrew. He's a fellow who's been featured here on the channel several times, and he got stuck with this weird round of matchmaking, and I think the match will essentially speak for itself. So he got stuck in a half-capacity game that's a double CV game. Yeah. Remember what we said about CVs in the Monarch? Again, they're HE rockets, they're bombs. They don't really care about your armor, so you're going to get bullied by them. And plus, just the way that the game devolves, he eventually winds up being the focus of, a good chunk of the enemy team. So there's one point where he has, I believe, 4 out of the ships that are on the enemy side focusing him down at the same time, including the 2 CVs, and you'll see him be able to brute force his way through this absolutely absurd amount of damage he's eating, because he's got that super hill now. So now the Monarch can do battleship things, just like her higher tier counterparts. That's how the Lion works. That's how the Conqueror works. They have, a low HP count for their tier. They have, squishy armor, bad armor by their tier standards, but that's made up for by the hill. So now with the Monarch, you can do battleship things. You can get in close. You can use your AP more and more. You can actually brawl with this ship quite a lot. And again, simply laugh and press your T button and reprint a good portion of your ship. Now, again, you can't just go sail right into the enemy team's teeth and expect to get out of it alive and be able to carry on about your day. No, but now you can do battleship things, which is amazing. And now you're in a survivable battleship with those 9 15-inch guns, with that mid-20s, mid-20-second reload time. And now, since you have that super hill, you can do one of my favorite things that you guys seem to be annoyed by, and ride Adrenaline Rush so much better. So now, Adrenaline Rush, by the way, if you don't know how it works, it's a commander skill you can take, and you get a boost to your reload time for every 1% of HP that you lose. So the more damage you take, the faster your reload is. And this is something that is, again, a party trick of the Conqueror and the Lion, because, again, those guys can reprint a massive chunk of their ship's HP with a click of a button. You can ride Adrenaline Rush at much lower, at a much lower health level, because you can hit T and get most of your ship's HP back. Most other battleships and most other ships in the game, you pretty much, when you see that you can utilize all of your HP, which if you don't know how you tell that, you look at your ship's HP bar, and when you get hit, when you see your HP, when you see that color that indicates your HP, that line drop, fall back, and you see that shaded line fall back too, that means that is as much HP as you can recover using your heal. So when you see that happen, most battleships will go ahead and pop their heal because, well, they want, you know, to be at the best case scenario for their survivability, which is being at, you know, your highest HP level that you can be. So with the British battleships, you'll see that shaded part is quite massive because, again, they get the super heal. You can comfortably sit at a lower HP level because you know that I can hit T and get pretty much 70% of my ship's HP back, which means you can ride Adrenaline Rush, get the faster reload time, and put more shells down range. And now you can do this with the Monarch with her already fast reload time on those 9 15-inch guns, which means she can be a proper damage hose now. And again, keep in mind, the ship still does have the British BBHE. Again, it's not quite as good as the King George V, but it is still improved HE. So now you can really get some damage downrange with the Monarch, and if you need to, hit your heal, go in for a brawl, or use your heal to tank through the damage you'll be taking from a brawl or from a situation like Andrew's finding himself in the background match where he's the focus of the enemy team's attention. So yeah, this has gone from being one of the worst battleships in the game. And, well, again, like I said, I always had a soft spot for it, but I understood why it was considered to be the worst, because, again, if you did get caught, you were pretty much dead in it. But now it is, again, a properly survivable battleship that can do battleship things, and it's pretty fun to play now. Like, you can go in there and, you know, duke it out with other battleships and such, and this ship is so much more comfortable to play at Tier 10. I've been playing it a bit. I just didn't get a dumb game like this, like what Andrew got here. That, again, is a perfect example of what I'm talking about here with the survivability of the Monarch going up now. But this is so much more comfortable to play in Tier 10 now. It's one of the most comfortable Tier 8 ships to play in Tier 10 because you have that improved heal. You know, yeah, I can get clapped by a Tier 10 ship, but guess what? I can reprint a good chunk of my HP now, and I still have that comfortable HE to fall back on. That way, yeah, I'm going up against Tier 10 ships, don't really care about my 15-inch guns, but guess what? They still burn, just like Tier 8 ships and Tier 7 ships, so you got that in your back pocket too. So again, in my opinion, it's gone from being one of the worst Tier 8 battleships in the game to being one of the best. So let me know what you guys think about the Monarch in the comments down below. Have you found her to be much more palatable nowadays? Do you find yourself playing her more? If you haven't played her, I would encourage you guys to take her out and see how she's doing in today's World of Warships with that super heal. So guys, hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday and wonderful rest of your weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.